Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a valuation expert in St. Louis, Missouri. During this episode, we will actually be discussing the current M&A landscape and how to use business valuations as one of the steps when getting prepared to sell your business. We have Greg Caruso here, who is a JD or attorney. He's a CPA and a business broker who lives in New Jersey, right outside of New York City, and works in Maryland and all over the Mid-Atlantic. One question I have that I'm getting a lot of in talking to small business owners, it seems like they are still being approached by buyers. So what is your advice if somebody comes and asks them if their business is for sale?
If you are comfortable with the person looking at you, and again, sometimes if it's a competitor, there may not be that comfort. If they get a really good non-disclosure signed that includes not stealing key employees, that includes not taking key customers. Now, if you already share customers, which many competitors will do in many market areas, maybe you need a carve out for them, but they already know the guys or gals, but get a good non-disclosure signed, and there's nothing to be hurt by exploring. What I tell buyers who come to me, I tell them right off, look, I'm a broker. There's a certain percentage of buyers. If you really know what you want, there's a certain percentage of buyers who aren't going to talk to me because they're not going to pay or sellers, they're not going to pay my brokerage fee. They're just not. And if I call them, they're going to say they're not on the market, because even if you're paying their brokerage fee, they know somebody's paying me a brokerage fee. If you call them direct, they may well talk to you. What you got to understand is on most of my listings, I talk to them a year before they list, because the sort of shock of reality of what we're going to sell for. I get a huge number of calls. I am ready to sell, Greg. I am so done. I'm great. Have you ever had a valuation done? No. Well, let's start there. And 30 days, 3 weeks, whatever it takes to get all the data and get it done. And you go back to them and they're like, well, at that number, I may have to run it another, I think I'll keep it forever at that number. And then usually what happens is a year later, they come back and they go, all right, I'm sure they checked with their accountant. They talked to the 2 or 3 people who they always knew always wanted to buy them. And they are ready to move on. The one thing we talk about in business brokerage, and it sounds cynical, but it's not. You're a seller when your time is worth more than your money, because you are always, if you run your business well and you have a reasonable market, you are always going to make more money running it for 3 or 4 years than you're going to make selling it. You just are. So until you're ready to get over that hurdle of, gee whiz, I could make that in 3 years, that's true. Unless you're in an industry where Google wants to buy you for something that's a different world, your typical cash flow, well-run business, 3 or 4 years, is all you're gonna sell for. So if you're not over that hurdle, you're not a seller. You may have a very good business, and one day you're a seller. And I would even say you might want to be talking to people. If there's a couple people in your industry that acquire, it doesn't hurt to be talking to them. You'll know where you stand. And, sometimes it makes sense to go out and try to get a subcontract, or try to get a contract, or try to do a joint venture with a logical buyer. Because again, what are we talking about? There's 2 ways we increase your price. We reduce your risk, which if somebody feels they know you and knows your operation and feels good about it, that reduces risk, at least to that buyer. The second thing is improve your cash flows. People come to me all the time and go, I'm gonna work really hard and grow fast. And it's like, no, not unless you're in an industry that when you're growing fast, you're also increasing your bottom line. Growing is expensive. You make all kinds of mistakes. You're spending advertising dollars. In a lot of industries, you get a good client, you're going to milk them for 4 or 5 years. But the year you get them, you don't make anything off them. It might take 18 months to get back what it costs between advertising and extra sales process and business valuation, and particularly business brokerage. It is a short-term process. Your business is going to get viewed just like you ever viewed your salesman. You got a salesman who made the record sales 5 years ago. You pat him on the back and go, that's great. What are you doing for me tomorrow? That's how buyers underwrite your business. That was great what you did 5 years ago. We're really happy to see it. But what are you doing next year, the next 18 months? That's what I'll pay you for. If it's beyond that, I'm doing it. That's why I'm buying a business. People come to me all the time. It's got so much potential. Apple seeds have potential, but I don't pay for the apple, and I certainly don't pay for the tree. I pay for an apple seed. Your business is the same way. So if you want to talk about how you increase your value, it's we have a saying for that too in business brokerage. If you want to get paid for it, do it, prove it.
Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of times business owners are like, well, I'm a $5 million company, or I'm a $10 million company in revenue. And the problem is a $10 million company in revenue that makes $1 million on the bottom line is worth more than makes $100,000 on the bottom line. So it's not necessarily just increasing revenue. It's what are you doing about the cash flow? Because that's whether you call it EBITDA, seller's discretionary earnings, it's still cash flow that a buyer is looking at to try to see if they can maintain. That's not necessarily directly connected to you as the business owner, but it's transferable in some respect.